Hello, and welcome to Chicago State University's Black Media and Entertainment Industry Conference. This four-day event is sponsored by the Department of Communications, Media, Art, and Theater here at Chicago State University. For access to the program, please go to csu.edu/CMAT/CMAT. That's CMAT, and click on events. Also, we're happy to announce that CSU will have a full schedule of face-to-face classes in the fall. For more information, you can go to csu.edu for registration and for scholarships. I'm Jarrell Henderson, Professor of Performance Studies in the Theater Department within the larger Department of Communications, Media, Arts, and Theater, or as we call it here at CSU, CMAT. I'm pleased to be here with Charles Andrew Gardner, President of the Chicago chapter of SAG-AFTRA. Mr. Gardner hails from the South Side of Chicago, where he began taking theater classes and performing at ETA Creative Arts Foundation at the age of 9. Since then, he has taken on an impressive array of artistic responsibilities and projects, including his role as president of SAG-AFTRA. So please, let's all welcome Charles Andrew Gardner. How are you, Charles?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Look, I just came back from a nice walk with my dogs. Got in a little bit of meditation this morning, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good.
That's meditation. Now, I have a whole list of questions, but what I also said we could roll with the flow. But you mentioned meditation, and I taught to I teach basic speech, which is how to speak publicly, which is incredibly hard to do. Mm-hmm. And so meditation and breathing technique that we often talk about. And so I wonder if you would feel comfortable maybe sharing one or two things that you like to do when you meditate, because it can be very personal how you meditate.
Yeah, well, actually, I've been using a couple of apps. So I use the Waking Up app with Sam Harris, and then I also use the Shine app. One of them I feel like is just like it clears my head, gets me in the right mind space. And then the Shine app is a little bit better for just like feeling good as a person and like knowing that I can conquer anything that I decide to do. I'm actually, I meditate up here. You can kind of see I got some balloons back there too.
Yes.
Like I surround myself with plants and just like, with light and really just center myself. I try to also get up super early so that way the dogs aren't up yet. I don't have any other responsibilities. Because I think it's important, for us as we're working through whatever responsibilities you have, right? Whether you're in the working world, whether you're still in school, whether you got chores to do, get up a little bit earlier and center yourself and spend some time with yourself and with your own thoughts, and that'll set you up for the day.
No, I couldn't agree more. I tend to do that. I'm a kind of a late night owl and an early morning bird, kind of into one, because I found I found that those are usually the hours. It's like no one's calling you, no one's emailing you. My loved one is usually asleep. You know what I mean? And so it gives me time to kind of be at one with my thoughts and kind of get my head together. Yeah. And it can be very productive during those hours. No, and I kind of love the background of what you have. And you say, I surround myself with plants. Yeah. I myself with light. And so often, I want to ask people who what are you surrounding yourself with?
Yeah.
Where are you placing yourself? If you come into our home, you'll see art, you'll see books. And that's, books are everywhere. Vinyl records are everywhere. Sometimes to the disappointment of my husband, who's like, why is there so much stuff? But it's the art. It's the thing that you pay attention to how you create your environment.
Yeah.
It's around yourself, because it will become a reflection of you, and you'll feed into it, as opposed to surrounding yourself with negative things or nothing, or unless that's your jam. Some people like that. But I just wanted to touch on that because I thought it was really, really important and helpful. Yeah. So the first question that I took down, we want to make sure that we walk our audience through, kind of the full experience of who you are and what you have to offer. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your bio in a bullet point form, because you've done a lot. So since becoming the president of SAG-AFTRA. When was that? How long ago was that? And then just kind of, what are some of the things that you've done that you feel are of note between then? And it can be, I got a dog and I take care of the dog, things that have been done professionally. I just kind of want to get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So I guess what I'll do is I'll try to like intersperse them, so that way we get a
Yeah.
little bit of personal, a little bit of professional as we go. Let's see. So I became a SAG-AFTRA member in 2012. So that was really the start of it. And I've always been the person that as soon as I'm involved in something, I want to figure it out. Like I want to get the most out of it. And I want to give the most to it. And so shortly after joining the union in 2012, I joined the board in 2015 so I could see what it was about, and just see where I could help. If I could help, I could definitely help. And so that next term I ran for board president. So 2017. I got reelected in 2019, so I'm serving in my second term. It's a 2-year term, and I'm running again for a third term. Just because like I feel like there's so much more for me to do, and also I want to make sure that my innovation, my creative thought helps to build rebuild the entertainment industry as we come out of this pandemic. So that's kind of how I got into it. Since then, I'm a really, really big ensemble person. Like you said a little bit earlier, I've been doing theater since I was 9. Did it all through high school. I did, I don't know if Chicago State, so some of y'all probably know, I did Gallery 37 when I was in high school. And I also continued to study at ETA. And so that sense of theater and ensemble, I went to NIU and studied Meisner there. And so that sense of theater and ensemble was so big in my upbringing and who I am as an artist. And so I wanted to bring all of that ensemble work to the union, and training to the union. So we've done with a position that we hired on, a director of, we have this spot called the KRC, the Call for Resource Center. I work with them to bring up these things called coffee talks, where even during the pandemic, we get together and we meet once a week and we just talk, we just build, we just fellowship, we build community. So, I had a part in bringing that forward. I'm an educator. I've been teaching in high schools now. I just got brought on to be a professor of on-camera acting at DePaul University this past year. So, yeah, thank you. So constantly pouring into the artist and pouring into us, making us feel like we have not only the confidence, but the tools to be able to build a career is really, really important to me. So again, working with that call for center employee, established something called on-cam jams and VO jams, which is basically, again, once a week we get together and we rehearse, right? We're not waiting on auditions. We're not waiting on opportunities to, perfect our craft. We're saying, nah, if I stay ready, I don't have to get ready. And this is a way for me to do that, right? So that's been a huge success. I also, again, being a person who wants to understand things and how they work, take them apart. Look at my watch. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm all about the inner gears, right? The intricacies of the inside, right? And so we have committee structure. And so it's pretty much as soon as I became president, I took the committees all apart. And I examined what worked, what didn't work, and how could we streamline and be more efficient. And then I also built a committee review process. So that way, every 2 years, when the election term came around, just a mechanism triggered that says, hey, should you still be serving at the top of this committee? Is there space to make room for anybody else that has a voice, that has some input that they want to share? And who is populating this committee, and is there room to bring in somebody who may be new to the union, or want to offer their service and their minds. So that's been some of the main things that I've been focused on. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I can't wait to unpack even more of that, move through the rest of our conversation, because I know, I sense that some of these themes thoughts and some of these ideas, they're gonna flow and reflow back into our conversation. I just have a feeling of that. But I wanna correct a mistake that I've already made. I'm not flying solo. I have the help of a CSU alum by the name of Chris Taylor. And so I want to take this opportunity to invite Chris into the conversation and tell us, Chris, just, where you're from, when you went to CSU, when you finished, and just a little bit about what you do right now.
No problem. Hello, Mr. Gardner. Pleasure to meet you. Like you said, my name is Chris Taylor. I graduated from CSU in 2016. Having transferred from another small school in Missouri. I have been, as you said, staying ready so that I do not have to get ready. The pandemic has really put a halt, in a sense, for like face-to-face auditions and things like that. So currently I'm in an acting class that we specifically work on self-tapes. And then amongst my friends and I, whatever short films, stories we can put together that can help me build my acting reel. I've been on doing that since about this time last year. So just trying to make the most of this downtime, if you will. So yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chris won't praise himself. So he is a fantastic on-screen performer. He is a wonderful live theatrical performer. I got a chance to direct him last year, the fall before quarantine. Fall before that, so the fall of 2019. 2020 is it's like the year that will not be mentioned. It's just like, no, it's actually the year that we'll remember over and over again because it taught us so much. But no, I got a chance to direct Chris. He's a fast learner. He's really great to work with as a director. I will always take people that I know that I can work with and spend time around over someone who might have more experience. And so Chris is someone that I just love having in a room. His energy's open, it's positive, it's productive, which doesn't mean that he doesn't ask questions, which doesn't mean that he doesn't have expectations, which doesn't mean, that he doesn't have a sense of what he has to offer, but it also means that he knows how to balance. He knows how. And so it was really, I was very impressed with Chris. And again, I just wanted to make sure that I brought you into the conversation because you're here and you're an alumni of the program.
Well, nice to meet you, Chris. And I think that that's so true. Do you Mr. Henderson or Jerrell?
You can call me Jerrell.
Cool, yeah. Jerrell. It's all about the energy. It's all about the energy in the room. Some of the work. I said that I was gonna do personal and professional. And
yeah, please.
One of the things that I'm a stage actor as well, and so
we're getting to that.
Okay, well, never mind. But I was gonna say, right before the pandemic, I got the opportunity to do 2 plays back to back with Wardell Julius Clark.
Yep.
So those rooms were so cool because we've been kind of coming up in the Chicago scene together. And this was the first time that we've been able to work together in a director acting capacity. And it was just so cool. Like we had music at the beginning of every rehearsal. And it was just a vibe. Like we would sit and we would talk and we would work through things. And I would always be like, man, if somebody comes into this room, they're like, they're not working at all.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's actually how you create a space in which the work can be done.
Yep.
That's the thing, because at least in theater, that it's a collision of the intangibles. It's a collision of, it's like, how do you make the intangible tangible? Because that's what we do. Theater is all ideas, right? So how do you reach on to the right ideas and then create an environment where those ideas can fuse with an actor's personality, an actor's intellect, an actor's hunger? acknowledging the insecurities without playing on the insecurities. Because I know a lot of directors who like to play on the insecurities of their performers in order to get a certain thing. And I'm like, bruh, just let them act. Like we don't have to play mind games with each other. We can just have open and honest conversations. You do your thing, I do my thing. If I've cast you in a play, then the assumption is that when you walk in, you're going to be prepared. So we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Just come together and do our thing and create some stuff. People will like it, they won't like it. Either way, we'll get paid something. We go on and we create something else. That's kind of the deal. But no, I didn't get to see Kill Move Paradise here in Chicago. I'm from Philadelphia originally.
Okay.
I saw it when it was at the Goodman in its reading form, the Goodman Victory Gardens, when it was in its reading form, and then I saw it in Philly. But I did get to see his shadow at 16th Street. I did get to see his shadow. And so one of the questions I have later on, there's a reference to some of the projects that you've taken on. And I'd just like to hear you talk about that because it seems on purpose. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Could you, for those who may not be familiar, just give us a really quick breakdown of what SAG-AFTRA is?
Yeah, so SAG-AFTRA.
What role does it serve?
Yeah, SAG-AFTRA is the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. So the Screen Actors Guild, the SAG-AFTRA is the union that protects the majority of on-camera actors, voiceover actors, broadcasters, singer-songwriter, recording artist, voiceover artists, stunt folks, background folks, like anybody that you see. Now, I can't say anybody. The majority of people that you see on television, the majority of people that you see in movies and films, the majority of people that you hear on the radio, the voices that you hear on commercials, the folks that you see on commercials, the majority of those are SAG-AFTRA actors. We, at this point, have a little over 160,000 members nationally. And here in Chicago, we have a little over 4,700 members. And so the main purpose of the union is give us fair working conditions, protect us on set, make sure that people aren't having us work way too many hours or not feeding us at the appropriate intervals, making sure that, if it's raining outside, we're going to be underneath a tent, just like common sense stuff that you would think that people are human decency. They're going to take care of you and look out for you, but they just don't because, film and television is a business. And so, unfortunately, producers a lot of time look at the bottom line. SAG-AFTRA says, don't you be looking at the bottom line. You better come back and think about these actors. Something else that's really great about being a part of SAG-AFTRA is that we can leverage collective bargaining. So these 160,000 people can say, hey, no, we want this done. And if it doesn't get done, then strike options can be put into the conversation. Fortunately, we're not at that place, and we haven't been at that place for a while. But just to know as an actor, because sometimes when you're starting out, especially for me, like I grew up on the South Side, until I went to ETA, I didn't know that becoming an actor was a thing. And even when I was at ETA, I didn't know that I could have this collective might behind me. And so as a performer, sometimes it can feel isolated, right? Especially right now in the pandemic. So just to know that at all times I have all of these members, all of this staff behind me, it just kind of makes me stick my chest out just a little bit, right? Say, look, mama, I did it, right? And for all those people that still say, hey, Charles, man, you still doing that acting thing? I'm like, yeah, I am. And it's not just a thing. It's not a thing. It's my profession. And this union helps to give that profession credibility.
Yeah. And Chris, what is it like? You're at what I would call the beginning of a career. I know you've been doing it, a long time, but at least in my mind, it's like before high school, it was a hobby. After high school into college, it was like, no, this is what I'm doing for a living. And so I defined the work I did after college differently than before college. But you, as someone who's recently graduated, Chris, and you're hearing this and you're in that environment where you're trying to figure it out, I wonder, what does it mean to you to hear Charles, who's a little bit ahead on the similar journey, you know, to hear him speak and to talk about these options that you have? What is that like?
There's really a calmness because I had a someone's going to cast me mindset once when I graduated, but I did not know how to put the plan into effect. There's only so much that you can control as an actor. So the no's that I received, I'm always looking around like, is that normal? I've had 40 no's in the last 2 weeks. Is everyone else getting no? You know what I'm saying? So it's to hear that the journey can still be continued if you make the choice to, gives me a peace and a calmness that I did not have when I first graduated. So that I love it. Thank you for that.
Yeah. If I can offer anything, Chris, to you and any other actors that's listening, create an audition log, right? So like on like a Excel or numbers, if you use a Mac, just like for real, keep track of your auditions, like what you get an audition for, when you get a call back, when you get put on first refusal, a check avail, when you book it, who those producers are, what casting director it was, how many days, whatever information you want to, keep track of. The reason being is because then it helps to make sense of that, right? You can start to identify patterns. You can start to identify like, oh, wait, okay, I've been over at this casting director a bunch this time of year, but then I don't go in at all this time of year. And you might in the moment be like, oh man, what's going on? Did I make somebody mad? Am I making mistakes in my process? But then you look back from year to year and you say, oh, wait a minute, it's just a slow time in the industry. Oh, commercials aren't being cast at this time because big businesses are, it's the beginning of their year and they're trying to, save their production cost for a certain time. Oh, there's the TV shows aren't being cast right now. I'm a bad actor. Wait, no, actually episodic season just isn't casting right now. So you can identify trends and kind of a little bit take the sweat off of your back. And then also just see your booking ratio. The average like working actor's booking ratio is going to be anywhere between like 10 to 20%. So that, yeah. So like I've been acting since in Chicago, back from school since 2008, and my booking ratio is about 17%. And so that's a heck of a lot of no's. But if you're not tracking it and keeping track and having these types of conversations where you're saying, wait a minute, how many no's are you hearing? You feel like you are way worse off than you are when that's not the case, So keep that audition log, man, and see if it'll help.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And part of the beauty of how this panel has been constructed, with Charles being, awesome and agreeing to do this, and Chris being awesome and agreeing to do this, is that now it does provide an opportunity of career idea exchange. And our ability to support each other and to build on what each other are doing and to just know what's going on. It's like, all right, so you're over on that side, I'm over on this side. What are y'all up to? What we're up to? Because keeping that kind of open communication means that we're all empowered.
Yeah.
We're all able to build off of what the other person is doing. One of the things that blew my mind as a teenager was realizing that Malcolm X understood and Dr. King understood what the other meant. Popular culture, and that one of the one of the beliefs, no one knows because they didn't have that many conversations, but one of the beliefs is that they kind of left it where it was because they understood that if they did get too close, it might take away from, if you don't want to deal with me, you're gonna have to deal with him. You don't want to deal with him, you're going to have to deal with me. So that they could actually use each other in a productive way because they both knew that ultimately they wanted the same thing. You know what I mean? And so sometimes they played against each other knowing that, you know what I mean, with how they made references. Not overt, but enough that you were like, oh, that's what they're talking about. It's really, really interesting. So we can do that. We can figure out how to work together, even if we don't all necessarily find ourselves in the same pathways or in the same agreement. We have the same goals. So just makes me happy to have, kind of the three of us having this conversation. All right, I want to get back to SAG-AFTRA for a bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
One of the things that one of the phrases that I've heard a lot in the theater business, especially because I'm not as into film as in theater, but I know it's in film because I see it on grant applications all the time. This is a phrase, equity, EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so we know this as programs that are supposed to expand to organizations that historically have been closed to so-called minorities in America, predominantly people of color, and within that, Black and brown, like African-American and Latinx folks. So what are some of the things that you as the president of the Chicago chapter are doing in Chicago, and maybe nationally if you have that, but you might not, so we can start in Chicago. What are you doing to expand equity, diversity, and inclusion in a way that goes beyond talking about it? Because so often we hear about why it's important, but when it comes down to how we implement it, then it's like, oh, well, we're working on that. We're getting to that, and it kind of flows off. So what are some of the things you're doing as president to really help guide and steer those conversations so that it leads to action?
Yeah. Well, first of all, being president is one of those things. In the research that I've done, I'm the youngest president ever for SAG-AFTRA and for SAG and for AFTRA before we merged. And so just from an age perspective, just me having the audacity to literally ask the previous president, hey, do you mind stepping down and making space for me so that way I can run and share my ideas? That in itself is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's me making pulling up a seat for myself at the table and saying, hey, everybody else, if you've been here for too long, we still want your ideas. Still stay around, still share your knowledge and your wisdom, but it's time for us to start making room for people who have not been in the game for as long as you, who may not look exactly like you. And that's another reason why as soon as I got in, I looked at the structure of these committees, because here are people who are just holding on to their committee seats when there are new people who could come in and share their opinions and share their voices.
And what's a quick example of a committee? Just a really quick example of
Yeah, perfect example. So a perfect example of a committee would be like we have a background committee, and those are the folks that are predominantly background actors on the TV shows and commercials, and they get together and talk about how to organize that work and create more work and just figure out what's going on in those settings. We also have like a seniors committee. We have a next generation committee. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We have a woman in film committee. We have a commercials committee. So all of these, like it's like individual specific silos of work that then with this committee structure can organize members, organize the workforce, and just make the working environment just better as a whole for the local. And then there's also national committees that we sit on. In fact, later today, a national call for the ultra low budget and low budget contracts. So for the actors who work those contracts, we get together, we talk about shortcomings, areas of opportunities, and then we talk about how to fix those holes, how to increase the union's presence in those areas, which is another way that I lend myself to EDI work, just sharing my opinions. I'm very vocal in every single room that I go into, not right away. Like I like to assess and see like what's already happening in front of me, because I don't want to get in and suggest things in like, Charles, we just suggested that yesterday. So I'm very attentive to what ideas are already there. But then as soon as I understand that, I'm offering up my opinions and I'm offering up ideas. And I'm constantly thinking about how to get people of color into the room and how to have our voices heard. Because true diversity is not just about the representation of the who's in the room, but it's about who gets to speak in the room and what ideas get to be kind of incubated right? Because if we can put all of our stuff into the pot at the same time, then that's where real change starts to happen, right? And
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
said, with that, the reference of having Chris in the room as an actor, right? And like it's more about a conversation, right? And the creating a where the actor can just do their thing. How can we create space? And I'm very intentional on this. How can we create space where, you know, diverse voices can be heard and feel comfortable and confident to share their voices because they know they will be heard. That's the
Yeah.
work that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've asked a lot of questions and I could ask many more, but we have just under 10 minutes left. And I want to make sure that some of Chris's questions and observations get a chance to be a part of this. So Chris, can you ask, you had two really good questions, and I think we have time for one good one, because I think these are questions that we can think about and kind of riff on for a while. So could you choose just one of those two and ask?
Yes. Definitely. So, Mr. Gardner, when I was a teenager, I was supposed to be rich and married with kids by now. No kids, and I'm not rich yet. So, with that being said, how did you begin to not only fall in love but appreciate the timeline of your story? I know one thing while I was at CSU that always used to get at me, and I really didn't speak on it too much, is some of my peers would um, come back to class and mention that they had a quick 2 second scene in this show and they were the extra in this show and this show. And then I'm like, I haven't booked anything. So how do you uh, what are your tools that helps you fall in love with this is my story, this is happening as it's supposed to happen, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Two things that I'm constantly thinking about as I meditate is detaching myself from my sense of entitlement.
Mm.
None of this is promised. Like none of this is
Very true.
promised, you know. And if you are feeling entitled to booking something, then when you don't, you're gonna build resentment or a distaste for the industry, for the career, and all of that. So I would say don't feel entitled. The only thing that you should feel entitled to or could feel entitled to is your process and improving your process. That's the only thing that I focus on. I focus on how can I be better in my mode of preparation today than I was yesterday. If I get the audition, cool. If I book the gig, cool. But I know every single time I show up, I'm going to be that much better. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is that I've been meditating on is the process of finding the balance between being and becoming. That's super hard because I'm always like, I be telling my wife, like, I time travel. Like I feel like I really can time travel. I spend time years ahead just meditating on like what my life is going to look like. Like you said, by this time I'm supposed to be this. By this time I want to be this. By this, and then when I come back from that, I say, cool. Where am I at right now? How can I stop and appreciate my life and my journey for where it is at this current moment? And that's that being part. And so when you find the balance between those two, you'll be very, I don't want to say content because sometimes when people hear content, they think complacent,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not complacency. It's just being really, really resolved with the fact that you're living the life that you decided to live. And when you think about that entitlement piece and add that in there, and you're not feeling entitled to booking something and having this stardom and having this riches and fame and whatever else you think that you're supposed to have, then you can really appreciate the journey and the process of where you are. So I think those two things will definitely be it. And one more thing, if I can add it in, find your passion somewhere else.
Mm.
Like just like you, I hit the same thing. I was about I'm 35 now, so I was about 20, maybe 26. I just got I was about to get married. I just had a bunch of stuff happen, like great stuff for theater, and I was like, man, I want to break into film, and I wasn't getting the opportunity. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make my own work. So I started producing. Actually, we just came back from this weekend. We were in Iowa, in Dubuque, Iowa, with a film that I wrote, and my wife and I, we produced it together, called Long Ride Home. We played at Black Harvest. We've been in about 20 film festivals, and it's just open. It's constantly opening up doors. One of it was because I was like, no, I'm not going to wait on anybody to give me permission to create my art. But then also, I want to constantly tell the stories that I want to tell, that matter to me, that's reflective to my experience and to the people of color, and stories of people who don't have a voice or a microphone to shout out what their experience is. So I'm doing it for them. And what that does for me is it takes off that like necessity for auditions and the mainstream and career to feed my creativity. If I get this work, cool. If I don't, cool. I'll be back, y'all. I'm about to go write this short film and produce it, and then get another grant and get some more money to do my next project, right?
Yes.
So make your own stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's similar to how I felt at the beginning of last year. This time last year, or just before when the quarantine hit, I had directed my first play in Chicago that really got a lot of attention. I directed plays before that one, like it was, being top rated and people are coming and people are paying attention, and I'm like, okay. And then COVID happens, and I remember, a month after, about a month into the quarantine, kind of looking around and being like, Zoom plays don't turn me on. I direct them. I will direct them, but they don't turn me on. What turns me on? And I thought about puppetry, which is something that I've always loved, but I've never dived into. And so I went, what if I spent this, like, instead of waiting around seeing how I could figure out how to produce or direct the best Zoom play, which isn't the most exciting thing to me. Again, I'll work. I'll work. But what else can I put my time and thought into and begin to develop that? Have conversations about that. And then ended up, in film puppetry. I made 2 puppet films over the holiday break with, information that had been building on. And now it's like, oh, well, you're in this other lane now. And what about the theater lane? And it's like, I can move from lane to lane. Like there's
Look, similarly, I'm using this time to develop an idea that I've had for quite some time now, and it's a line of drinking teas called the Actors Cup.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not really religious now, but I was raised Baptist, so I still keep my spirituality, right? And one thing that always sticks with me, especially in moments like this, and it was like, oh man, it was on repeat and on like ultra loud in my head during the whole pandemic, and that's peace be still and know that I am I.
Yep.
And that I is our creativity, and that I is whatever your faith is, and that I is that inner voice that's saying, no, this is the thing that you're supposed to be doing. So sometimes we have to just be still. And if we use this pandemic as a way to hear that voice and to hear that, like, Zoom things are not my thing, but this puppetry thing that I've been thinking about, that's actually the direction that I should be going in, right?
Yeah.
Training, whatever it is, right? Like allow yourself to just be still and listen to where your passions lie.
Yes. And don't be afraid to explore something different. Just it's not the thing that you thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Theater has been going great for me, but it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I thought I was going to be going out to see more shows and doing stuff. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
So no, that's absolutely right. I could not agree more, and I'm glad you shared that. All right, we have to wrap up. So I'm gonna do my last quote, which I really want to share with you, because when I was looking, I found a review for This Far by Faith, which was the most like finding that and reading about it, and just finding as much as I can. And I'm like, okay. So
I was 14 years old when I did this.
You said in an interview that you were about 13 or 14 when then it was the first time you auditioned. Because before that you had been kind of in the ensemble of children or young actors, and that was your first paid
role.
I got paid. So I wanted to share this quote with you. So it's a Toni Morrison quote, and she said that I tell my students, when you get these jobs you have been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have power, then you need to empower somebody else. And when I look at you and I look at the roles you've chosen, and again, when I think about you immediately in the context of His Shadow and Kill Move Paradise, because those were the last two projects that I was aware of you being in, and the one I got to see. And then, I looked up The Long Ride and just like, oh my goodness, this looks incredible. So it seems like you embody that phrase. And so I just wonder, are there any other thoughts or questions that you might have? I love questions because sometimes a question is the best statement. Need an answer, just give me a question, and that can feed me for a while. So I wonder if you have any thoughts or questions for our students here at CSU who are, figuring out what they want to do in life, and it's going to be in entertainment, and it might be in film, or it might be in theater. What would you like to leave us with that you can think of right now?
When I was going away to school, I asked my mom, should I go to be an actor? And she looked me right in my face and she said, Charles, what would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? I said, I would act. She said, well, going on then. So that's what I give to y'all. What would you do if you didn't have to act? If you didn't have to worry about money? Everything else is going to fall into place, because when you find that thing, you're going to find your passion. And when you find your passion, you're going to be living right in your purpose.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. On behalf of everyone at Chicago State University, thank you, Mr. Gardner, for spending time with us today. Personally, I'm going to take with me, because I'm also grew up in the Black Baptist Church, and now it's like, I'm good, but I still have a relationship with, it's a part of me.
It's in you, yeah.
The idea of the peace be still, of knowing how, like being calm in the storm, which in my mind goes along with also don't be afraid to dance in the storm. Sometimes the thing you can do is to celebrate now. I'm not waiting until I get what I get. I'm gonna dance now. So it puts it in that territory. So thank you for sharing that. So our next panel is going to be new play practices from prison to playhouse, the story of Caged. I'm going to be the panel host again, and that's going to be with Boris Franklin, who is a playwright and actor. He was a phenomenal actor, and Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Chris Hedges. That panel will begin at 10 a.m. And remember, if you are a teacher applying to receive professional development credits for attending one of our 4 K through 12 accredited panels, please use the link in the chat to receive more information. Go to csu.edu, CMAT, click on events to access the conference tomorrow. Please use the new link that will appear in your email tomorrow morning. And thank you, Chris, thank you, Charles, and thank you to our audience for spending your time with us. You could have been anywhere in the world and you came to hang out with us. So thank you so very much. We hope that there was something in this for everyone. Thank you, Charles.
No problem. Have a great day, y'all.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.